Was it a forceful murder or an accident? The mystery of Maria Martha. On the evening of October 27th, 2002, what began as an ordinary day for Maria Marta Garcia Belsunce took a tragic turn. The well-respected socialite had enjoyed an afternoon playing tennis with a friend. However, their game was cut short by an unexpected rain shower, prompting Maria Marta to return to her home in the affluent gated community of Carmel. Her plans for a relaxing evening included a bath and a session with a scheduled massage therapist. But when her husband, Carlos Carrascosa, opened the door to their home, he was met with a scene he could never have foreseen. In the autumn of that year, the life of Maria Marta Garcia Belsunce, a distinguished Argentine socialite and heiress to a multi-million-dollar fortune, came to a grim end under mysterious circumstances. Originally dismissed as a domestic accident, the death did not prompt an immediate criminal investigation. However, discrepancies and suspicious details soon surfaced, casting doubt on the initial assessment. The turning point in the case came when a paramedic, dispatched to the scene on that fateful day, noticed irregularities that suggested foul play. His intuition told him he had walked into a crime scene, and the behavior of those around him was oddly evasive, as if they were attempting to hide something. This prompted a closer look into the circumstances surrounding Maria Marta's death. Maria Marta Garcia Belsunce, who later took the name Carrascosa through marriage, was born on April 24, 1952, in Buenos Aires, Argentina's capital. Raised in a prosperous and influential family, she was a part of the country's elite social circles from a young age. She excelled academically, earning a degree in sociology, and later graduating from a prestigious business school, which paved the way for a successful career. At just 19 years old, the beautiful and intelligent Maria Marta married Carlos Carrascosa, a successful Argentine businessman 6 years her senior. Their marriage spanned over 3 decades, a union marked by companionship and mutual respect, though they never had children. Beyond her achievements in sociology and business, Maria Marta was also a prominent figure in social circles, known for her charitable spirit. In the mid-1990s, she assumed the role of vice president at an organization committed to finding missing children, dedicating much of her time to the cause. Her life, filled with social and philanthropic work, left a lasting impact on those who knew her. Maria Marta Garcia Belsunce excelled in all aspects of her life, consistently proving herself to be a warm, affable, and popular figure within her social circle. Everyone who knew her was touched by her kindness and sociable demeanor. Her husband Carlos, however, was shrouded in controversy, rumored to have underworld connections, though these allegations were never substantiated with solid evidence. In the mid-1970s, the Carrascosas, together with Maria Marta's parents, were pioneers in funding the construction of Carmel, an upscale residential enclave that evolved into a veritable sanctuary for the affluent and celebrated. This gated community was so exclusive that access was heavily restricted, often barring even law enforcement without specific authorization, which would later become a pivotal factor in the unfolding events. A seemingly ordinary evening transformed into a perplexing mystery when Carlos found Maria Marta lifeless in their bathroom. Initially thought to be an accident, it was suspected she had slipped and struck her head on a faucet. However, the scene that greeted the first responders raised immediate red flags. Instead of chaos, there was an unnerving calm among the family and friends present, their actions appearing strangely orchestrated, as though they were intent on keeping the true circumstances under wraps. Doubts intensified following an autopsy that pointed to injuries inconsistent with a mere fall, propelling a surge of scrutiny towards the investigation. What began as a simple and sad inquiry soon escalated into one of the most debated and scrutinized cases in Argentine history. This case marked a turning point, revealing deep-seated secrets and leading to astonishing revelations that pierced the veil of high society's shadowy corners. In the late 1990s, seeking tranquility away from the hustle of Buenos Aires, Maria Marta and Carlos opted to reside permanently in Carmel, where they enjoyed a spacious and serene home, unknowingly setting the stage for the tragic events that would unfold. The Carmel complex covered a sprawling 250 acres, accommodating over 300 plots. It boasted facilities for families of all sizes and ages, ensuring comfort for those with children and offering plenty for the actively inclined, including sports fields, swimming pools, and both indoor and outdoor courts for soccer, basketball, volleyball, tennis, and more. Around the perimeter, the complex was secured with multiple surveillance cameras, alarm systems, and several strictly managed security checkpoints that operated around the clock to maintain peace and order. The residents, primarily affluent and notable individuals, valued their peace and privacy highly, which made the events of Sunday, October 27, 2002, all the more shocking. On that day, Maria Marta and Carlos were visiting their friends, the Benils, who also lived within Carmel. It was a typical warm weekend day, and after lunch, Maria Marta and her close friend Viviana Benil decided to engage in some tennis for exercise. Concurrently, Carlos opted to visit his brother-in-law Guillermo and his wife Irene to watch a soccer match. Maria Marta had arranged for a massage therapist to come to her home at 7 p.m., planning to return in time for the appointment. However, an abrupt rainstorm at around 5 p.m. interrupted their tennis game, prompting her and her friend to head back. Riding her bicycle home, Maria Marta was drenched by the rain and chose to take a warm bath to relax. At 6:45 p.m., the massage therapist Beatrice Michelini arrived at one of the security checkpoints. Entry into the complex was strictly regulated, and Beatrice was asked to wait while security verified her appointment with Maria Marta. Despite several attempts, they couldn't reach her by phone. After numerous unanswered calls, a decision was made to dispatch a security officer to check on Maria Marta's well-being at her home. It was at this moment that Carlos appeared, verifying that Beatrice was indeed expected by his wife. Together, they proceeded into the complex, setting the stage for the unfolding of numerous discrepancies and questions about the events that followed. Conflicting accounts exist regarding the security guard's involvement on that fateful evening. In one version, the guard was called back after being dispatched to Maria Marta's house, as her husband Carlos had already arrived. Alternatively, it is said that although the guard reached the residence, Carlos intercepted him, insisting that he would manage the situation himself. Upon his arrival, Carlos noticed the front door was slightly open. He asked Beatrice, the massage therapist, to remain outside and entered the house alone. After calling out for his wife repeatedly without a response, he urged Beatrice to stay put as he made his way upstairs. A noticeable cloud of steam led him to the bathroom, the door of which was wide open. What he encountered inside was horrifying. The room was splattered with blood, and Maria Marta lay face down in a bathtub brimming with hot water. Reacting swiftly, Carlos shut off the running water, pulled his wife from the tub, and began desperate resuscitation efforts. His calls for help were first heard by Beatrice, who had been waiting by the door. She rushed in, took in the grisly scene, and immediately started performing CPR on Maria Marta. In a puzzling decision, Carlos chose not to call emergency services right away. Instead, he phoned his brother-in-law Guillermo, whom he had visited earlier, to report an accident involving Maria Marta. His calm demeanor led the family to initially underestimate the gravity of the situation. However, Guillermo and his wife Irene quickly headed to the Garcia Belsunce residence, suspecting they might be needed. Upon their arrival and realizing the severity of the situation, a frantic Irene called for additional medical assistance and dashed outside to find a doctor among the neighbors. Unfortunately, even the neighbor, who was a doctor, could do little to help. Meanwhile, Carlos delayed further by waiting approximately 10 minutes after discovering his wife's body before he finally summoned an ambulance. Around 7:30 p.m., the first ambulance arrived, and Dr. Juan Gabriel Gordon immediately commenced advanced resuscitative measures, including the use of a defibrillator and administering adrenaline injections in a fraught attempt to revive Maria Marta. Despite the frantic efforts of the medical team, it was to no avail. Maria Marta showed no signs of life. By then, Irene, Guillermo, and Carlos had already informed all the relatives of the grim event, and family members began congregating at the house. Soon, the residence was filled with nearly 18 people, predominantly from the Garcia Belsunce family, though a few neighbors had also come over. The atmosphere was charged with grief. Women wept loudly while the men, equally distraught, struggled to offer comfort amidst the uncertainty of what should be done next. At around 7:45 p.m., a second ambulance arrived carrying Dr. Santiago Biasi, who joined his colleague in the attempts to revive Maria Marta, now moved to the hallway. Amid these frantic efforts, a decision was made by someone within the family to begin cleaning up. The bathtub was drained and bloodstains on the floor, faucet, and walls were hastily wiped clean. Surprisingly, Dr. Gordon was seen participating in this cleanup. Dr. Biasi was immediately alarmed by these actions, sternly instructing everyone to stop and preserve the scene, suspecting that what had transpired was not as simple as it seemed and could possibly be a crime scene. However, his concerns were dismissed by those present who insisted it had been a tragic accident. Maria Marta was thought to have slipped, struck her head on the faucet, lost consciousness, and subsequently drowned. The family continued their cleanup, rationalizing that the shocking sight of blood and the water stained red was too much for Maria Marta's sisters and mother, who were in shock. Around 8 p.m., the arrival of a police car at the gates of Carmel added another layer to the unfolding drama. The security guard, assuming they were en route to the Garcia Belsunce residence, called Carlos to confirm. Carlos, however, informed him that the police had not been summoned and their presence was unnecessary, claiming it was merely an accident. Interestingly, law enforcement had not been called. The officers had decided to investigate after noticing the arrival of 2 ambulances at the community in quick succession. Due to protocol and the lack of a warrant, the officers could not enter the gated complex without explicit permission, leaving them unable to verify the situation inside. After a period of waiting unsuccessfully for clearance, the police officers left the premises. Subsequently, security personnel at Carmel reported that Maria Marta's brother had engaged the patrol officers in conversation at the checkpoint before they departed. This interaction sparked rumors that he might have bribed the officers to prevent them from investigating further and to keep silent about the events transpiring inside Carmel. These allegations, however, remained unverified. Following the confirmation of Maria Marta's death by the medical team, her family moved her body to the bedroom, positioning her on the bed as if to prepare her for a funeral. They then proceeded to clean the bathroom and hallway even more meticulously. Dr. Santiago Biasi, witnessing these actions, repeatedly urged the family not to tamper with the body or clean any surfaces, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. In a bewildering turn of events, Maria Marta's brother Horatio discovered a strange metallic fragment at the scene. He showed it to Carlos, who dismissed it as trash, and it was subsequently flushed away. The next day, Dr. Biasi, deeply troubled by the disregard for procedural integrity, contacted a police officer connected to the prosecutor's office and relayed his observations from the Garcia Belsunce household. Taking the matter seriously, the officer intended to interview witnesses, but was advised to allow the family time to mourn. Despite this, he informed Prosecutor Diego Molina Pico and the police commissioner, prompting them to initiate a thorough investigation. Upon their arrival at the scene with the necessary warrant, both the prosecutor and the commissioner initially found nothing amiss, as the relatives of the deceased insisted that her death was merely a tragic accident. However, when they spoke to witnesses outside the family circle, they uncovered startling details. Notably, Dr. Biasi expressed concerns that the head injuries seemed inconsistent with an accidental fall, describing the bathroom as resembling a violent crime scene. He emphasized that he had advocated for calling the authorities immediately and preserving the scene, but his advice had been ignored. This led to further scrutiny. After gathering all testimonies, the prosecutor requested the official medical report on Maria Marta's death, expecting it to clarify the circumstances. Instead, the report complicated matters further, stating that the 50-year-old had died from sudden cardiac arrest with no signs of physical injury, contradicting the suspicious conditions observed at the scene. This discrepancy prompted questions about the accuracy and integrity of the initial medical assessment. Despite unanimous witness statements describing the scene as an accident featuring a head wound and pools of blood, the official document listing the place of death as Buenos Aires, incorrectly, as Carmel is not only distant from the capital but also in a different municipality, raised suspicions. This discrepancy was further complicated by the fact that Carlos, Maria Marta's husband, had signed off on this document verifying the inaccurate details. His actions were puzzling given his earlier acknowledgement of an accident, yet his official confirmation of starkly different details. This contradiction marked a turning point in the investigation, positioning Carlos as the primary suspect, particularly since there was no evidence of a breach in the complex's security system, suggesting a possibility that he might have staged a tragic accident. The mystery deepened when, nearly a month after Maria Marta's death, her body was exhumed for further examination. The autopsy results were shocking. The forensic expert found 5 bullet wounds in her skull, 4 bullets were lodged inside, while the 5th had merely grazed her head, chipping the bone. This revelation brought up critical questions. How could numerous witnesses, including 2 medical professionals, have mistaken gunshot wounds for injuries consistent with a fall? Additionally, signs of a struggle were apparent on her face and hands, and blood found under her fingernails did not match her own. Reclassifying the case as a homicide, the investigation intensified. Amid the new findings, Maria Marta's brother remembered a peculiar metallic object he had found on the bathroom floor on the night of her death, an object he had nonchalantly flushed away. With Carlos having since moved to an apartment in the city, the house was left vacant, which aided investigators in their search for the discarded metal piece in the plumbing. Upon recovery and examination, the mysterious metal was identified as a bullet fragment. This critical piece of evidence, along with the glaring inconsistencies in witness testimonies and the official documents, shifted the focus of suspicion towards the family members, particularly Carlos. Subsequently, Carlos was arrested in early 2003 and taken into custody, though he steadfastly denied any involvement in his wife's murder. The investigation also explored potential motives for the crime. One prevailing theory suggested that Carlos had connections with the Mexican cartel and was involved in money laundering. It was speculated that Maria Marta might have stumbled upon her husband's illicit activities. As a law-abiding citizen, her discovery posed a threat to Carlos, potentially prompting him to silence her to protect his criminal interest. Throughout this tumultuous period, the unraveling of what initially appeared to be a straightforward accident revealed a complex web of deceit, crime, and betrayal. The involvement of close family in potentially covering up the true nature of Maria Marta's death only added layers of tragedy and intrigue to an already convoluted case. As the legal proceedings against Carlos unfolded, the case captivated the nation, becoming one of the most notorious and closely watched legal dramas in Argentine history. Another theory proposed that Maria Marta was not just aware of her husband's illegal activities, but was actively involved. However, plagued by guilt, she was reportedly on the brink of a breakdown and contemplating coming clean, which could have threatened their operation. It was also speculated that Carlos did not commit the crime alone, having possibly enlisted the help of unnamed accomplices. The rapid cleaning of the crime scene, the manipulation of Maria Marta's body, and the deliberate delay in allowing law enforcement access were seen as deliberate efforts to obscure the evidence of these crimes. Financial motives were also considered. Should Maria Marta die, Carlos would inherit their extensive assets, including businesses and valuables, a substantial incentive, though technically her family might also have claims on her estate. However, it was deemed unlikely that her parents or siblings would challenge the inheritance. Amidst the investigation, Carlos brought up a new piece of information, a small safe he claimed had disappeared the day Maria Marta died. He described it as containing cash, crucial documents, and valuable jewelry. This revelation was suspicious, as Carlos had never mentioned the safe before, and it raised questions about its existence and whether it could have been an additional motive for murder. The trial against Carlos Carrascosa commenced in 2004, with prosecutors initially seeking a life sentence. By early 2007, Carlos was convicted for his wife's murder and sentenced to 20 years in prison. However, after serving 5 years, new DNA evidence emerged indicating that none of the blood found at the scene matched Carlos. In 2016, he was fully acquitted and released from prison, found guilty only of attempting to conceal evidence, not of murder itself. The handling of official documents added another layer of confusion to the case. It emerged that the Garcia Belsunce family had mistakenly signed a pre-prepared death certificate under the assumption that Maria Marta's death was an accident and not a crime. This oversight complicated the legal proceedings and delayed the proper certification of her death. This situation was further muddled when her brother attempted to secure a death certificate from a funeral home the evening of her death. The request was refused because, given the circumstances, a forensic examination was necessary to determine the cause of death, a procedural step that highlighted the family's initial underestimation of the situation's severity and the legal requirements for investigating unexpected or unnatural death. Maria Marta's brother made several attempts to certify her death as non-criminal. He traveled to a neighboring province to explain that she had died from a domestic accident, emphasizing the situation to the local funeral home. However, protocol required a medical examiner to visit the scene and verify the cause of death, but complicating matters, the assigned examiner was on medical leave at the time. The funeral home, which had several pre-signed forms ready, could have completed the documentation, but visible injuries would have necessitated police involvement to exclude foul play. Consequently, the death certificate erroneously listed a non-traumatic cardiac arrest as the cause of death. The document inaccurately stated Buenos Aires as the place of death, rationalized by the family's plan to bury her in a cemetery in the capital. Carlos was not present when the certificate was issued, but he was responsible for the payment to the funeral home, evidenced by a check signed by him. Curiously, Maria Marta's brother did not sign the certificate himself. Instead, The issuer replicated Carlos's signature, asserting that he had verified all the details contained in the certificate. After Carlos Carrascosa was acquitted of his wife's murder, a new theory surfaced proposing that Maria Marta might have stumbled upon an intruder after returning home early due to rain. This scenario lent credibility to the previously dubious story of a missing safe, suggesting a more sinister context for the events that unfolded. According to this theory, Maria Marta entered her home unaware of the intruder's presence. She proceeded upstairs and began running a bath. It was only then that she encountered the armed intruder. A struggle ensued, during which Maria Marta managed to scratch her assailant. However, the situation escalated quickly as the intruder drew a gun and shot her 5 times in the head at close range. Investigators speculated that the intruder's primary objective was the small safe, which he allegedly succeeded in removing from the premises. The contents of the safe remained unknown, but the theft provided a new motive for the crime. The stringent security measures at the Carmel complex made it unlikely for an outsider to have penetrated the community unnoticed, which implied that the perpetrator might have been someone from within. This insight led to the suspicion of Nicholas Pacello, a resident known for his controversial and confrontational behavior within the Carmel community. Incidents of dubious nature frequently seemed to accompany him, raising questions about his involvement in the crime. His background and activities within the community painted a picture of a potential local perpetrator who could navigate the secure environment to execute such a crime. Nicholas Pacello, a resident of the Carmel community, had amassed significant wealth following the suspicious death of his father. Described by neighbors as a compulsive liar and incredibly greedy, Pacello's wealth did not curb his penchant for stealing, which had escalated into an obsession. His behavior made him an unpopular figure in the community. Many found him rude, aggressive, and unprincipled. Rumors circulated among neighbors that the Garcia Belsunce family stored valuables and substantial amounts of cash at home, details Nicholas was likely aware of given his proximity. Living nearby with his family, he had ample opportunity to observe Maria Marta, learning her schedule and habits. It was rumored that he planned the theft for a Sunday, knowing the homeowners would typically be away until the evening. However, the unexpected turn of weather caused Maria Marta to return home early, inadvertently confronting the intruder. Caught off guard, he resorted to violence, leaving Maria Marta with no chance to escape. After the deadly confrontation, it was believed that the intruder fled with the safe, successfully evading detection. Given his long residence in the community, Nicholas knew the placement of all security cameras and managed to avoid them. Despite becoming a prime suspect, Nicholas maintained his innocence, claiming he was with his mother at the time of the incident. His alibi was initially supported by his mother, who was supposed to confirm this in court. Tragically, she took her own life weeks before the trial, leaving a note expressing her love for her son and bequeathing all her possessions to him. In the wake of the murder, DNA samples were collected from all relatives present at the crime scene and compared with those found on Maria Marta's body. Many Carmel residents volunteered for DNA testing to clear themselves from suspicion. Surprisingly, tests revealed that the blood found under Maria Marta's fingernails did not match Nicholas, nor was his DNA found at the crime scene, leaving no physical evidence to link him to her death. Nevertheless, Nicholas's criminal activities caught up with him, and he was eventually imprisoned for unrelated charges of burglary and fraud in another residential area. The case against him concerning Maria Marta's death remains open, as neither the supposed safe nor the murder weapon has been located. The investigation continues, leaving unresolved questions about the true circumstances surrounding the high-profile murder of the Argentine socialite. Reflecting on the complex and unsettling case of Maria Marta's untimely death, it's difficult to escape a profound sense of frustration. What initially appeared to be a simple domestic accident quickly unraveled into a convoluted mystery riddled with unanswered questions, competing theories, and unresolved details. The tragedy of that fateful Sunday evening is not just about the events that transpired, but also about the enduring secrets and shadows that haunt the Carmel community. Throughout the investigation, peculiarities such as the missing safe and the odd behaviors of those involved added layers of intrigue and suspicion, drawing figures like Nicholas Pacello into the fray as a key suspect. Despite extensive investigations, numerous court sessions, and intense media scrutiny, the case lacks a definitive resolution. The true architect of Maria Marta's demise remains elusive. Was it someone within her inner circle or an outsider who breached the community's stringent security? To this day, crucial pieces of evidence like the safe and the weapon used in the murder have not been found. Nicholas Pacello, though incarcerated for unrelated crimes, has not been definitively linked to Maria Marta's death. This gap in justice leaves a lingering unease, a puzzle incomplete with pieces still missing. Theories abound, and perhaps some viewers have their own ideas about what truly happened. Was this a botched robbery, a desperate act, or something darker? I invite your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Thank you for tuning in to this deep dive into one of the most perplexing cases we've encountered. If you're interested in exploring more mysteries like this one, don't forget to subscribe and join our community. Your insights and engagement help keep these stories alive and pressure for answers ongoing.